I never heard of Kazutoshi Iida before. Found him through Doshin the Giant, which by now is one of those weird obscure games that has found its niche. I wanted to know more about what went on behind the production of the game, and found a couple of interviews of Kazutoshi, and they were super cool. I really liked how he articulated his vision for the games, not only as simply a subversion just because, but the thought process behind it, how he sees what it means to challenge gameplay conventions. It's not that being different is good in itself, but because I guess video games evolved in a certain way, but I don't think this certain way is deterministic. Probably video games wouldn't be what they are today if some of the variables that contributed to that evolution had been different. Breaking away from what we expect as an experience in a video game, it can be that we experience this alternate parallel reality that is different from the gameplay conventions that we take for granted nowadays, and that were developed based on parallels and patterns that we as human beings could identify, approach, and more intuitively interact with. It's like imagining what sci-fi cinema would be if Star Wars hadn't existed, or 2001: A Space Odyssey before that. Kazutoshi's games cannot really be placed in any gameplay category, because there's not a lot we identify as familiar, and we risk discarding his games as boring because we expect some sort of specific gameplay loop to keep us engaged. Well, but what if the concept of gameplay loop and engagement had evolved differently to something different from what we have today? I mean, these games aren't that alien, but you get what I mean. This is where some of the fun in delving into games like the ones created by Kazutoshi lies. As technology evolved and allowed for it, I guess it's more or less clear that most mainstream big video games have made one of their primary goals imitating reality and its intricacies. A megalomaniac goal that draws more parallel to a godlike complex where creators revel in their power to simulate virtual realities that more and more seem closer to our own. Although these accomplishments are certainly impressive and can have their own appreciation, paradoxically, I think that this power fantasy of creation is very limiting. After all, there's a limit to how much you can imitate reality, and that limit is reality itself. Kazutoshi's games make very little sense when judged under our preconceived typical ludonarrative quote-unquote rules. Although they are not particularly surreal in their concepts, they are based on exploring the sea, on role-playing as prehistoric people, but then the whole implementation of the concept is where it gets crazier. Tale of the Sun is the game that simulates life for a prehistoric tribe, with what you would expect with that summary. Survival is a central mechanic as you hunt to eat and fight animals. The map is huge and has some secrets and you're free to explore. There are progression mechanics in which you develop parts of your body as you eat meat and become stronger. Final goal of the game is to construct a tower of mammoth tusks, which is kinda savage. Let me be clear though, the game is very clumsy and frustrating, mostly because of the lack of explanation of literally every mechanic. I don't mean to claim it's some sort of elitist level of enjoyment that only a few might get. On the other hand, I wonder how much of its clumsiness was due to budget constraints, as maybe around 15 or so people worked on the base game, and it doesn't seem like the kind of game some producer would be happy to dump money onto. But the game does have a certain charm in the hilarious way it connects gameplay and narrative. You can get tattoos as power-ups that are granted by monoliths found in the world. It's weird but intriguing, and it doesn't seem like the game takes itself too seriously. I guess the player's suspicion of these elements is intended, or at least expected. As for example, when our prehistoric hero falls asleep unprompted, and the player is forced to wait for him to wake up, or force him to wake up and deal with them getting tired faster and falling asleep sooner. There's also a lifespan mechanic that attributes a timer to each tribe member, after which you need to pick up a different one to continue the work. These are all constraints that might be put off as not being fun, and I guess that's natural. But it's still interesting having elements of the game kind of pushing their will onto the player instead of having the classic player-centric game world, in which everything is manipulated at the player's whim. and it's certainly a philosophical design concept that might be worth delving into. The basic ideas here have potential and could perfectly be the basis for some other more recent open world game. And it's pretty interesting to just pop in the game for a while and calmly explore the menus and the world to see what the hell is going on, even if it's close to impossible to figure out without a guide. I don't know why Wikipedia mentions, and quote, "You are an overworked marine explorer who returns to the water for pleasure after having brought harmony to the world's oceans," unquote, without giving any source for that info. I hope it was part of the game's manual, and I hope it's true, because it's so specific and weird. But the link between overworking and disillusion with our passion projects is definitely very real. There's not much explanation in-game for what the hell is going on, but there's definitely more going on than one might expect initially, and without the game manual, I surrendered after a while and went to the internet to find some directions. After reading about the mechanics, I felt a bit more comfortable in just taking the game in without expectations. The goal of the game is to build a coral for fishies. When you attract enough fishies, the credits roll. You get more coral blocks to build the said coral, basically like Lego blocks I guess, as you explore the map. Exploring the map rewards you with finding secrets and meeting different species of fish. And yeah, that's basically the whole game. Exploring is just its reward in of itself, so there's not a lot of going on here. You figure out where you haven't been in the map and go there, and you slowly complete the map of the territory you're given to explore. Interacting with the fishes though has a bit more mechanics attached. You can emit 4 types of sonar sounds, and these I guess are meant to be used to communicate with the fish. Some sounds will scare off some of the fishes, but the same sound might be used to attract a different one. So you just go around trying all of them and see which one makes a specific type of fish run away and which one makes the same type of fish swim towards you. So yeah, there's basically all of the gameplay loop of the game. Meaning there almost isn't any particular gameplay loop to feed your dopamine addiction. You just swim around trying different sonar sounds to see which one attracts which fish, after which they will approach you and blurt out a random ass sound like a human for some reason when you touch them. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't get to the ending, but just chilling, calmly experiencing the game, slowly and meticulously navigating, communicating with fish, checking what areas of the map I was missing, and finding the secrets. It was actually very cool. Like, if you go in blind without a lot of expectations or knowing what exactly the game is about, it gives you these mysterious vibes of the bottom of the sea, random structures, face sculptures, and makes you go, oh shit, when you find a whale or a manta ray. It helps that, given that the game is 20 years old, it's not like super immersive in a realist way, but it does have its style as an abstraction, almost virtual reality-like, of what the underwater world looks like, with a constant rumbling. It's kind of therapeutic even. There's really low volume music playing around, but also some of the menu music is very chill. It's not like the game is this unforgettable experience that you'll cherish for the rest of your life. There's not a lot to do, and I won't judge people if they find it boring. After a while it can be tiring. But it had its time and place in my weeknight, a time and place of wonder and mystery and chill vibes for a couple hours, and that's honestly quite enough for me. I think I've never played a God game, so I'm not super familiar with what the usual core mechanics are expected to be. Doshin the Giant was interesting to me mostly because it's colorful and the cover artwork goes fucking hard. That's how important covers are. I clocked my first what the fuck is going on moment at probably 30 seconds into popping in the game. That was watching the intro. The voice acting is not particularly bad, but the fact that the text is so fucking awkward and the differences between the subtitles and what was being actually said is so weird. It's not that it diverges and that both contradict each other, it's just that you always have this slightly disparity in wording for every line. And I mean every line. Did no one proofread this?
If you want to make a new village, listen carefully to what I say. At first, you need ample space for it, and the space must be a reasonable distance from other villages. Secondly, you must take a male villager to the site. And when you bring him together with a female, a new town will be born.
It's filled with these kind of small, weird incoherences and confusing decisions that just make it kind of mysterious for me. Mysterious in the sense of, what were they doing in production that these came out like that? Like, for example, if you leave the start menu open for a while, it will replay a little intro like so many games do. But besides the intro, every time this happens, it also shows a reloading data from the memory card message. Why? Could they not keep the state of the start menu while replaying the intro? Did they forget to omit the message when the intro was replayed? It's so weird. This kind of weird memory card access moments happen in more menu navigation flows. There's a menu screen which is, at least to my knowledge, very much just read-only, where you can check some lore and some of the goals that you are missing. You cannot edit anything here. But when you navigate back, you are greeted with a saving data to memory card message. What changes are they saving? It's just so fucking weird, innocent, and funny. There are some in-game bugs that I found, but I'm not sure how much these actually real bugs or a consequence of me not really playing on original hardware, if you know what I mean. But the game has this aura of someone that just wanted to make a game with a certain vision, not really worrying about the intricacies of the more mechanical or technical parts of the work that I think is very identical to the indie game spirit in a certain way. Just above all else, an immense drive to materialize something that came out of your head without worrying or even knowing too much about technical details. So, what is the game about? I'm not gonna pretend it got me thinking about anything in particular. It does have more to say than is apparent initially. The intro has some narrative development as it contextualizes the game. Then like 2/3 of the game are mostly gameplay, and then you have a little prologue where you get some more storytelling through cutscenes and gameplay before the credits roll. The intro is narrated by a character called Sodoru, who tells of a giant, Uz, that rose from the sea and walked to land where people lived. There are some parallels between the giant and the sun as it rises from the sea every morning to wander and do stuff before it goes back to its slumber as the sun sets. The gameplay goes something like this. You need to make sure each tribe prospers enough so that they build a monument in your honor. For them to prosper, you need to shield them from natural disaster by carefully terraforming the land, and by propagating, as Sodoru puts it, green energy, which is manifested in the form of the amount of vegetation the tribes have access to for agriculture and resources in general. You propagate green energy by picking up the trees and rearranging them closer to settlements. When you get a number of trees close together, around 7 or so, they will wither and give birth to a new group of the same amount of trees plus 1, thus increasing the total tree count. So you're more or less expected to repeat this process to multiply the number of trees in a village and extend the green energy's reach. What I find interesting is the freedom in being able to choose either being a benevolent helper or just destroy everything the little humans build. There's no real consequence, good or bad, in choosing either approach. You are a god after all, and in being a god it's up to you to choose what you want to do, knowing there isn't any reward for being good or punishment for being bad, or even reward in being bad and punishment for being good. The way I see games usually portraying moral choices is in this binary choice between a more or less obvious morally good option which might have negative consequences for yourself, and is a morally questionable other option that might benefit you more personally. Of course, there are loads of cases where nuance is better portrayed, but most of the time you more or less have to seduce the player with some consequence to really make moral choices sink in and have some impact besides narrative elements. So in Doshin the Giant, although we do have to a certain extent help the tribes prosper, the final goal of the game of building all monument types can be achieved by either having their good karma version be built, in which the tribes build a monument to worship you, or by building their bad karma version, the hate monuments, in which the tribes build a monument, I guess to fear you or something. It follows that it is up to you what you want to be. knowing that for you as the player, there's no real consequence. It is not harder to achieve the ending of the game if you're good or easier if you're bad, or even vice versa. You are good because you can, because you choose to, and because you genuinely think that's the right thing to do. In being a god, it is indeed true that you already have everything you need, as you don't need anything. What can your mortal servants or protégés give you that would make a difference? The truth is sometimes being good pays off, and sometimes being good hurts you. And so in having this freedom, you have to find your own meaning in the game. All of this moral discourse is kind of destroyed in the ending, as incomprehensible to me as it is. The truth is that whatever you do, when you finally unlock all monuments by mixing all the tribes in all the possible ways that you can, the world ends. The last monument is the Tower of Babel. When finished, it makes the island crumble under its weight and everyone disappears in the destruction that follows. We are then greeted to some sort of cycle of death and rebirth as the titular giant sun god falls and offers his body as new land in a world of water. We are then reborn and must help the new civilization in the giant's island to finish their monument, a space rocket in which they live for outer space. As much as I can imagine it being a kind of nihilist conclusion to humanity's inevitable fate, it is so immediate that it kind of makes it feel like a punishment for what you've been building so far. But perhaps as the universe is indifferent to our actions, our morals, and our lives, this inevitability is something that needs to be accepted. And so the question that remains is, knowing that it will all end, and being a god with absolute freedom, do you choose to treat humans kindly, or do you make their lives miserable?